So now we're going to begin to think about how we would start to select a design. And this really goes back to our purpose, the questions that we have and the things we want to try to understand. If our research questions really do drive a lot of our other decisions. If we want to know, if we don't know much about something and we're asking that, sort of initial broad question, we have a pilot study of some kind, that's going to have us ask different questions than we've got this intervention, we've got this thing, and we really want to know more about the outcomes related to that intervention. Those are different types of designs which have us make, different kind of decisions along the way. So let's look at these a little bit more. I really do like the quick guide 4 in your book, page 194 to 195. So you can pause this video and pull that up, but it really has us ask some questions and helps us decide what type of design, right? So is the research question designed to help us acquire a preliminary understanding of a phenomenon? If the answer to that is yes, then you're in the exploratory realm, right? We want to understand how prevalent a certain condition is in a geographic area. So we really want to just, describe. That would be that descriptive. How effective is a program in making specified changes? Then we're in that explanatory realm, right? So we probably feel like a lot we're living in the explanatory design because we do have this intervention and we do want to understand the outcomes. There's a lot of factors when we think about measurement and sampling, when we're thinking about our group research designs in our next video, if we can actually do randomized assignment. If we can, great. If we can't, that limits our ability. But I like these questions. So just kind of looking over that will help you think through. So exploratory really is, we go from observations and we try to make conclusions out of that. And that's inductive reasoning, right? The subject has little exploration thus far. So we're really starting with very kind of broad questions exploring this phenomenon, right? So I have created an elective, my Be Well, as I shortened the title to, elective. And so there isn't much research because this is a new elective, and I know I haven't done a lot of research on it. There is some research on wellness and students, but not in necessarily this specific. There's fewer courses out there. Anyway, so my question might be, what meaning do students ascribe to self-care and well-being after taking a course about that, right? After taking this course. Little known, this ended up being a qualitative research study, but kind of exploring that. So taking these observations and then trying to make some conclusions maybe more broadly after that. Descriptive, we want to describe a phenomenon in a holistic way. This can be both quantitative and qualitative. What were the demographic characteristics of the students who took this, right? So just simply stating and describing the students who took this and gave me data. It could be, what meaning do compassionate care activities hold for students at the end of this course? So really describing the meaning around that. That's, again, more qualitative, but descriptive in that way. And when we get to explanatory, this is more deductive sort of reasoning. So we have hypotheses, right? Like, oh, we think this is going to happen. When we thought back to that restorative justice example, we think restorative justice is going to do better than traditional, and it's going to, impact suspensions in some way. So we have that. Then we go out and collect data. We observe, right? It's like, oh, this happened to, this number of suspensions. Oh, this, and we're kind of watching maybe some trends over time, right? Ideally, here we're sort of explaining and we're trying to understand the relationship between variables, between restorative justice and suspensions, between mindfulness and, again, maybe some scale that we have, that we're saying this intervention, this thing we're doing is having an impact on. There's some relationship to that. Ideally, we're hoping for cause and effect. And to really make those claims at the end of the day, there's a lot of decisions and a lot of things have to happen, mostly around randomization or, kind of control and comparison groups to say our intervention was actually the source of change. I think I've quickly, said, what if I had two classes of research and one's in a Zoom room just sitting there, sort of doing their thing without me, and then we're all together in our Zoom room doing the things with an instructor. So could we say at the end of the day, we can say a bit more about your research knowledge, the change in that based on the intervention, which would be instructor presence, right, between the two groups. And there are a lot of confounding variables in that, right? A lot of other things that might be impacting that, but that's kind of that. So how effective was this course at increasing mindfulness using the mindful attention awareness scale? Like if that was congruent with what we were doing. Does it increase mindfulness? I would say as students take 35-30, mindfulness should increase in those students as compared to maybe the student body who hasn't taken this elective, right? And so we would want to say something about this elective. So that's kind of the difference between exploratory, descriptive, and explanatory research questions. And one thing that we can, if we don't have that comparison group, I've got this section, I've got y'all in my section of research, and I don't have my Zoom room where students are just sitting there looking at each other or chit-chatting or whatever they might be doing in there, right? One way we can do that is a post test. So you'll often hear, oh, we did a pre-post, on that, That's because we can't have that comparison group. It's either not ethical, it's not possible, feasible, whatever. So pre-test is that observation that occurs before the independent variable is administered. Post is after. We saw this with single subject research a little bit too, right? And we had that baseline, we had the intervention, we tracked it over time, then we had maybe this maintenance so that's a little bit of kind of pre-post test in some sense. So the terminology or the notation here is we have observation 1, right? That's collecting data. We've got intervention, experiment, the experimental condition, and then we've got observation 2. So again, if you're kind of that visual and like going through articles, you can kind of start to map out what kind of design they used, and that can tell us a little bit about the other decisions that they made and the claims that they can sort of make at the end of the day. So it helps us understand, as you see in the middle, within group change, if we can't have that comparison. And we could also do some sort of follow-up observation to see if it was maintained over time. We also saw that in single subject research. So again, kind of combine a couple of things here, group research designs and the way we make choices about them through the questions we want to ask, and then thinking about pre-post test terminology.